Welcome to Basic Brewing Video. I'm James Spencer.
And I'm Steve Wilkes.
We're here in Steve's kitchen,
Studio B.
Test Kitchen B.
That's right.
We're going to continue our summer of session beers with one that we discovered while we were in Seattle.
Yes.
Do you remember the circumstances?
No, I was in Seattle drinking beer.
Well, we met some friends from Israel.
That's right.
From Tel Aviv, I believe. And one was Dagan Bar Ilan, who owns the brewery called Hadubim, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which means the Bears.
The Bears.
The Bears. I don't know if there's another brewery called the Bulls or not, but anyway, he shared this beer with us called Baby Ale. And we have a picture of the can, and it's got a pacifier on the front of it, something that probably would not be approved by our federal government.
Probably not.
But his beer was 1.8% alcohol by volume.
And it was delicious.
Now, do you remember the character of that beer?
Malty. You didn't feel. What I remember about it was that I didn't feel like I was drinking a light beer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the character was of a much heavier and much bigger beer. Just malty, not too sweet.
Right.
Just a good pale ale, but you would, 1.8%. Drink it all day.
Very satisfying.
Yeah.
Now, the last time we did a session beer, I used a good bit of rye to boost the body of the beer up, and then some dry hopping to add some sort of interest and character to the beer.
Right.
Well, this beer is all about the malt.
Yeah.
And Dagan was kind enough to share his recipe, which I adapted for our purposes. I simplified it a bit. Now, if you listen to the ingredients, you will see that it is mostly specialty grains. So you're able to get the body from those specialty grains, and then what's fermented is the base malt.
Right.
And since there's little of that, you get little alcohol. So you get character from the beer, but not a lot of alcohol. So here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
I added 2 pounds. This is for a 5.5 gallon batch, or a 5 gallon batch. I added 2 pounds of English pale malt, 1 pound of 60 Lovibond Crystal, 2 pounds of Carapils, and 6.5 ounces of Vienna malt. Now that's it.
It's a grain bill.
And now if you look at that, there's only a couple of pounds of base malt in there. So I did brew in a bag, and I added that grain to 10 quarts of water at 168 degrees Fahrenheit, and mashed that for an hour. And I used my smoker to keep the stable mash temperature again.
Yeah.
And then after the mash, after 60-minute mash, I sparged in 5 gallons of 170 degree water.
Wow.
So
what was your original gravity?
The original gravity was 1024. So to that wort, I added 9 grams of Chinook and 9 grams of Willamette hops for 60 minutes. And at 5 minutes, I added 13 grams of Chinook, 13 grams of Willamette, and 9 grams of Hallertauer. So, and then I fermented with USO5. So it sounds like a lot of hops, but there's not a lot of hops in this beer. So mine, I made an Imperial Baby Ale. Mine came out to be 2.1%.
Just Imperial Baby. Would you share some with me?
I would. I just happen to have some right here.
Well, fancy that.
Now, you'll notice that since there's a lot of specialty grains, boy, that's a...
Head retention's not a problem.
I may have to switch with you. I kind of poured a little aggressively there. Plus, this is a well-traveled keg today.
That's okay.
So we may have to wait before we taste it, actually. Yeah. So maybe what we want to do is talk about what you made with and to go pair with the beer.
So here's the deal. We have this really nice malty beer. I've had this beer before, and so I knew what we were up against. And we talked about how could we cook with this beer, this particular beer. And I don't know what led me down this road, but I thought pecan pie. So
why not?
Why not? The twist is that it's not just a pecan pie. It's a pecan pie that's been made with this beer as the syrup. So, if you're from the South, you make pecan pie with Karo syrup. Everybody knows what Karo syrup is. If you live in Europe or Australia, golden syrup is common. Well, I made essentially Karo syrup with this beer. To make the syrup, what you do is you take 1.5 cups of water, but I substituted the baby ale, and 3 cups of sugar. You bring it to a gentle boil, which is difficult to do because this stuff will foam. This stuff will foam so fast it'll make your heart break. I mean, it's just like, whoom, if you want to talk about a boil over. So you cannot leave it. You cannot leave it. I can't stress that enough. And you bring it up to about 212 to 218 degrees. Use a candy thermometer, make sure your temperature's right. If it's too cool or too hot, you'll get a different product. And you take it off the stovetop. That's basically it. But you're going to end up with foam just like this. You're going to end up with a lot of foam.
A lot of head retention.
A lot of head retention on that syrup. So I just scooped that off and threw that away. And what I was left with was the beautiful clear syrup, and it really looks a lot like maple syrup. And that's the twist. Otherwise, it's just a regular pecan pie. So 3 eggs beaten. There's a teaspoon of vanilla extract, a half a teaspoon of salt, which is 3 grams, 5 tablespoons of butter, which I melted to make it more easy to incorporate, 2/3 of a cup of white sugar, just regular old white sugar, 1 cup of Basic Brewing beer syrup that we just described, and 1 tablespoon of molasses, dark molasses, that you could use whatever kind you wanted. Then I used a cup of pecans that were chopped rather finely and put that into the base of the pie shell. Then I added that mixture that had all mixed up, added that on top of it, and then I put the other cup of pecans, so there's 2 cups of pecans in here, and put those on top and kind of patted them until they were all nice and glistening, and then pop that into a 9-inch pie shell. Bake this for 50 minutes in a 350 degree Fahrenheit oven, which is 176 degrees Celsius, or until the center is firm but not hard. So it'll kind of have some give, a little bit of jiggle if you want to do it that way. Or you can use a thermometer, a candy thermometer, and check it, and when the center reaches 200 degrees, you can pull it out.
So while you were explaining that, magically the pie was cut, and we now have ice cream that and it's not sweet enough already.
No.
So you drizzled it with some more of the simple syrup.
Well, yeah.
Not simple syrup, the slightly more complex syrup with the beer.
That's right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, it's good.
It's a quaffable beer.
I don't know if it's exactly like Dagon's, but it's good. It's
Whether
really
it is
good.
or it isn't, it's a very nice beer that it's a perfect lawnmower beer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So let's see how our pecan pie came out. And I didn't make the ice cream. I didn't make the pastry. This is all about the filling.
That's darn good.
Wow.
Now, people always ask, can you taste the beer in it? I think you can. Mm-hmm. It's subtle, but especially when you taste some pie and then you taste the beer, there are some of the notes. Mm-hmm. And this beer is malty, so that it doesn't give a bitterness to it. I think if you were to try this with like an IPA, wouldn't be the way to go. Mm-mm. But you could try this with what, a porter or a stout or something like that?
Yeah,
too?
sure, I think so.
Very good. Well,
just in time for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And here we are preaching about low-calorie beers, and
well, you got to offset with something.
It's all about balance, right? Well, we've got one more low-gravity beer to talk about here. Next month, we're planning on it. So until then, happy brewing. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Come and visit us on the web. At basicbrewing.com, you can find archive lists of both our audio and video podcasts on home brewing. You can also find our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, Introduction to Wine Kits. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Write to James at basicbrewing.com, Steve at basicbrewing.com, or just use the contact form on basicbrewing.com.
Roadhog!